Good afternoon. My name is Alan Elfman. You're watching My AZ TV. Visit Sedona TV and Sedona.biz. Next to me, I have the privilege and honor of interviewing a former Sedona City Council member, in addition to being a vice mayor, and now he's candidate for mayor of Sedona. This is John Martinez. Hello.
Hello, Alan. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a little bit warm out there.
I was just going to say, well, I'm glad that's why we're in here. It's time to stay cool.
Thank gosh. And we're here in Sedona in your lovely home.
Thank you. Thank you
It's
very
a
much.
Lovely office.
Credit the wife.
Well, we always have to give credit to the wife.
Does a lot of decorating.
So, speaking of your candidacy, why don't you give the audience your platform? What do you stand for?
Thank you, Alan, for asking that question. Primarily, what I've said, and I've told a number of people, is that I basically have 5 items that I consider part of my platform. Number 1 that I would give to the city of Sedona is experience, leadership, integrity, fiscal sustainability, and environmental stewardship. I believe all 5 of those items are important to the city of Sedona, and as a mayor, to try and keep those things to the forefront of what the city should be embracing.
Well, that's very good. Now, as far as your tagline, what is your tagline?
My tagline is, a time for change, you have a better choice.
And speaking better choice, tell them why you're a better choice.
Well, with those 5 characteristics that I embrace very much with regards to the city, is that my experience, as Alan made mention, is that I had 8.5 years actually, on city council. 4 of that was for the vice mayorship. Now, with regards to leadership, as being vice mayor, Sandy and I worked very, very hard on making sure that the city was going in the right direction. We talked a lot about things that had to be done prior to actually meeting for council meetings. And we were pretty much agreement on everything that we had.
And we're talking Sandy, the previous mayor.
Yes, Sandy Mayoral, the previous mayor. That is correct. Now, the things that I really thought were important is to make sure that council, the Chamber of Commerce, and the residents, and you can't leave out our guests, that all the needs were addressed and made sure that what was coming down the pipeline with regard to what council was hoping to accomplish pretty much addressed all of those. You couldn't do one without the other because it is a community that we live in. And so I wanted to make sure that they were all touched. We never left one out. Now, when I was on council, one of the things I was really proud of started in 2012. In 2008, as everyone remembers, it was the Great Recession. Now, the thing I am most proud of is that the city was down in regard to revenue being brought in. In fact, Tim Ernster, who was the previous city manager, had to cut the budget by 30%. I had the honor of working with several businessmen as part of the Budget Oversight Commission, which was started by the former mayor, Rob Adams, prior to Sandy. And he developed that says, we want a Budget Oversight Commission to see what we can do to bring revenue in, and also at the same time, make sure that that revenue, the coffers, were spent wisely. Well, I had come from California, and I recall Disneyland in the Anaheim area, they agreed to do a 1% budget increase, or I should say a tax increase, for the hotels in that area. I spoke to Steve Segner and Jennifer Wesselhoff. It didn't really go out very well in the beginning, but when they realized that we needed to promote Sedona to the outside world because of the Great Recession, we needed to do something. So I was part of the team that initiated an agreement with the Chamber of Commerce and the hoteliers to increase the bed tax by 0.5%. And by doing that, the city would agree to take 50% of the total bed tax and promote Sedona. Well, excuse me, lo and behold, in 2014, when that was passed, we increased the revenue for the city. approximately $25 million between a time period of 2014 to 2019. Obviously, 2019 was prior to COVID. And at the same time, we paid the Chamber of Commerce only $7 million. So we had a net increase of $18 million of that. And that was because of the leadership that actually was presented to me and encouraged me by Barbara Luttrell and also Mike Ward. So I was able to get that courage from them to push that increase through, and the city has really been now on a solid footing for that.
Well, you said a mouthful. It's an abundance of knowledge. It's wonderful. So I have a question for you. As far as while you've been vice mayor, what is your biggest accomplishment that you could say, listen, I was part of this?
Well, like I said, the first thing was the revenue, the agreement that we had with the Chamber of Commerce to do the DMO that we had to promote Sedona, because we needed to do that. Next thing was really part of the SIM project, Sedona in Motion. Obviously, anybody that's been here knows our traffic is unbelievable when it comes to spring break. Well, the city wasn't really built with an understanding of what the future would bring. Sedona is a destination vacation. People are coming. I came back in 1988, and other people keep coming. It is there. We need the residents. So we invested about $250,000 to do a traffic study, which was by Kimberly Horn. And they came out with somewhere in the neighborhood of like 13 options to try and address traffic. Obviously, no single one was going to be the magic bullet to make traffic better, but you needed to do all of them to make it better. Now, I come from California, and as I always joke, what we've got here is not traffic, but we do have issues and times where it is that we have to wait 15, 20, 30 more minutes to get from here to there. And I am John Martinez, and I approve of these messages. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning back in. My name is Alan Elfman. You're watching MyAZTV, Visit Sedona TV, and Sedona.biz. And next to me, we still have mayor candidate John Martinez next to me. And our next segment that we're going to be speaking about is the cultural park. Unfortunately, I've only been here since 2003, and I believe 2004, when I was a school board member, they handed out diplomas at that cultural park, and I believe that was the last time that place has been used. What's in store for the people who have lived here or people who have heard about it?
Well, Alan, that's very good that you brought that up, and probably we should go back in history a little bit. The cultural park, or what we also talk about, the amphitheater, was started back prior to me being here, and I guess probably before you were coming here. The amphitheater was built for outdoor entertainment because we had a number of individuals that thought we could really bring high performance individuals that came. Nora Jones, Vince Gill, Tony Bennett, Willie Nelson, I told you it was B.B. King. And that was being done at the Culture Park. We had thousands of people here.
And this is before the Sedona Performance Arts Center was put up there.
That is correct. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. It was before the Sedona Performing Arts Center because the Performing Arts Center is controlled by the school. The amphitheater was controlled by another group with many managers. Now, what worked good about the Performing Arts Center is that Sedona does have extreme weather times. Winter time when it could be snowing and it could be 13 degrees, or in summer, which like we are experiencing right now, when temperatures can be 110. That's where the partnership was being developed to work not only with the amphitheater and entertainment happening there, but also to work with the Performing Arts Center to try and get a collaboration for entertainment. Now, the seating arrangement is completely different. Performing Arts Center can only handle about 700. And the reason I know that is because I am also on the board. I am the treasurer for the Sedona Symphony, and all of our performances are done at the Performing Arts Center. Now, the amphitheater was built to hold as many as, I'm told, I was not here when it happened, 5,000 people. was on the west side of Sedona. The traffic wasn't really that bad in the middle because everybody's coming from Cottonwood, the 260 area. We didn't have hotels then, but we now have 2 really big hotels right across the street from the Culture Park. But unfortunately, I don't really know. I get conflicting stories. The amphitheater and what they wanted it to be failed. And so it went bankrupt and it just was left by itself. Now, the Culture Park that we're talking about now is what can we do with the Culture Park? And the city purchased that. Now I'm going to be straightforward with everybody, is that I thought a price tag of $23 million for the Culture Park was ridiculous. We had just 2.9 miles down the road towards Cottonwood, we had the Dells area. Culture Park, for what they were planning to do, at that time they even said, we do not know, but it's land within the city limits that we should acquire. Well, down the road is, going back, Culture Park, 41 acres. Dells, 237 acres, and we already own it. Why are we spending $23 million? But we have done that.
Explain to them where Dells is for people who don't know.
I'm sure most of the people that have ever gone to Cottonwood to purchase items from Walmart or Home Depot has passed a building that sits on the right-hand side, like I said, 2.9 miles down the road, is what's called the wastewater treatment plant. That is where they process and handle all the sewage that comes from all of our homes. We've got a world-class system there. What comes out of the effluent after everything was treated is A+ water. And we use that to water right across the highway, the Dells area, all the sprays that you see going on. Cows go there. There's trails in that area. But there's also trails at the wastewater treatment plant. People think, who wants to live across there? Well, you've got picnic areas, you've got the trails around there, you've got a platform that looks onto one of the reservoirs at the wastewater treatment plant that is sponsored and supported by the Audubon Society and the Sierra Club. So that is what's on the right-hand side going towards Cottonwood of the Dells. So everything you see, sprayed, farm, all of that, that's what we call the Dells. That area, and I'll come back to that later, but let's go back to the Culture Park. There's talk by the current council and the mayor that they want to flatten out the amphitheater. Back in 2014, one of the areas that they really wanted to look at for the community by all the residents was to try and resurrect the amphitheater. Well, this current council would prefer to tear that down, and that's okay, workforce housing or affordable housing, whatever you want to call it.
Well, actually, that ties into it because one of the biggest topics around is the people experiencing homelessness and affordable housing for employees, teachers, and everything like that.
Which brings up very interesting. Are we talking Safe Place Park where you're going to live in your car? Or do these people really want to live in a home?
Let's bring up both. We can even touch into both because I know for more information they can always log on, but let's touch into both.
Okay, let's talk about Safe Place Park. Everybody was going to, I think they were going to limit it to 40 individuals or 40 units or 40 cars. You could have multiple families, which would be pretty tight in some of those cars, but they'd be living in that area and they would not be bothered by, let's say, the police department, whatever, that they're currently trying to be out in the forest or maybe living down the street from where you live or maybe a gas station. They would not be treated that way, but they'd be living in their cars. The big concern, or several concerns, is the extreme weather. What happens when it gets to be 100 degrees at nighttime? What are they going to do? They can't run their car to run the air conditioning. That's ridiculous. It's also dangerous. And conversely, wintertime, when we've got snow out there, are they going to try and run their cars and have the heaters going? That is very dangerous. It's well known that people die in their cars with carbon monoxide. So that was a big hindrance of what the Safe Place Park is. Also, you're living, there could be, like Alan my car could be here, your car's there at this distance.
Okay.
You know, we've been to several parking areas for the theater or for the market.
Yeah.
And you've got your neighbor playing, let's say, Led Zeppelin at 10 o'clock at night. Do you think this person's going to really enjoy that? This plan was not well thought out.
Okay.
Now, the city was going to get a grant from the state, somewhere in the neighborhood of like $823,000. That would be for 2 years to try and help accommodate, provide service or whatever for those people that were living in their cars. But what happens after 2 years? Which one on council is going to have to say, I'm sorry, but tomorrow you're going to have to leave? Because there's only a 2-year grant.
You mean the enforcement?
Yes, that is a 2-year grant. Now everyone's got to vacate the Safe Place Park.
Would that
because there's no money?
2-year grant, and then in hopes of getting more during that 2 years?
No one mentioned that part. I do not know.
So what's the alternative?
The alternative was, back in 2018, I remember talking with Justin when he was still the city manager at the time prior to Karen Danes. We said we need to start looking at the Dells to possibly address, because at that time, short-term rentals was playing a big part. People were losing their rent or the apartments that they were living in. And we said, Justin, maybe we could do something at the Dells, you know, tiny homes and things like that. So I've been pushing that area, the Dells, which is across the street from the wastewater treatment plant, to house those individuals that need homes. Now that is a perfect a place for people, the people that work here to live there.
And how long would that take about?
Probably the same amount of years it would take to be in the culture park. Anywhere, depending on what the building codes are.
Okay.
Probably, I'm going to guess, probably at the most 5 years. I mean, we've got a number of arduous rules and regulations in our building codes and development codes that you have to follow these steps. For the safety, it's number one. Safety is number one on anything that we built. Sprinkler system that I have in my house and other things like that for electrical standards that are being updated all the time. So those type of things, it's going to be the same time frame, in my opinion, but I'm not a civil engineer, I'm not an electrical engineer, I'm not a plumbing engineer or whatever. But talking with developers, and I know 3, especially the person that built my home, it's going to cost the same, it's going to take the same amount of time to start building, and be it here, be it the Dells, or be it the Culture Park. So for people to say, and there's several people that are on present council that says it would take 10 years to do it at the Dells. I totally disagree, and I think they're mistaken. They're getting their facts wrong by whoever they're talking to. Now, to incentivize where we want to be at the Dells is that I believe, because we already own it, and if the city is really serious that they want to provide workforce housing or places to be for the homeless, it should be there, because if the city was to lease the land, 237 acres, to lease the land to a developer or a contractor at a very low price. Could be, I think, like the Navajo Nation, no, excuse me, it's a completely different Indian nation, the Havasupai. They were renting to the National Forest Group, I remember this back in the 60s, $1 a year for 99 years, so that they could run the rafts down the Colorado River. We could do something very inexpensive here. Let's say $1,000 a year for 30 years. And then you use the over $8 million that we have in the housing fund to pay all the required impact fees, hookups to the sewer, hookups for electricity, and all those other things that anybody that ever built a home has to pay. If we could pay those 2 prices, because everyone knows land in Sedona is very, very expensive, have the city lease the land at a very economical price to a developer or contractor, all that would be left for the developer and the contractor is materials and labor. And each one of them will tell you, you get those 2 big ones out of the way, now you're talking about affordable homes.
So where can people log on or get some more information? Because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions that people may have. How do you want them to contact you?
Well, I'd like to say that my name is John Martinez. I'm running for mayor, and my website that I have a lot of this information that I've talked about.
It's going to be right here.
Has my number. And in fact, I'll give it right now. 928-639-2693. Once again, 928-639-2693. To call me up and say, you talked about this subject, talked about that subject. Could you go into a little bit more detail so I understand where you're coming from? And that's what I would like to do. You go on my website at www.martinezformayor.com. Very simple, Martinez for F-O-R, mayor.com. And you can get a lot of information there, or call me. There's something going to come out this Friday at Red Rock News, so we'll see. I don't. Obviously, if this is recorded or presented after this Friday.
Oh no.
Okay, it'll come out again. So.
Maybe we can send them a link and they can see what a real interview is really like.
Yeah, excellent.
I'm just saying, video interviews, they don't do those yet. We do here.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. Well, this is mayoral candidate John Martinez. You've heard it here first. Thank you guys. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Welcome back. Right next to me, we have mayoral candidate John Martinez, and we want to spread the word. You have until July 30th because you've got to do your voting, you've got to do your mail-in vote. So I want to close off with the segment.
Thank you. Hello again. My name is John Martinez, and I am the mayoral candidate for the city of Sedona. You are watching this interview on Visit Sedona TV. Again, I am John Martinez, and I approve these messages. And as Alan said, July 30th is the last day to submit your ballot. Thank you very much.